Will LinkedIn pay you $110 an hour to leverage your HRIS knowledge? Was it a scam? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to the HRIS Careers Podcast with your host, Troy Wallace, a podcast for human resources information systems professionals to help you elevate your HRIS career. We always say no one gets into HRIS on purpose, but it sure is interesting to find out how they did. We interview your HRIS peers to find out how they got tricked into the industry and what lessons and tools they use to progress their careers along the way. We discuss industry trends, AI, and even talk candidly about all the most popular HRIS platforms. Just think of it as the closest bar just outside the entrance of your favorite HR technology conference. Now you get it. Welcome in. Welcome back to the HRIS Careers Podcast. I am happy that you're here. My apologies for all of the intrigue and mystery. I do want to talk about something that actually did happen to me. So it all started with a LinkedIn job posting. It looked almost too good to be true. So I've got in my feed anything from HRIS jobs, Oracle, talent acquisition operations, and this showed up, and it advertised $110 an hour, and it was for a one-time AI interview. So obviously, what was my first reaction? It looks a little scammy. It was posted by LinkedIn itself as the company LinkedIn, but I was still pretty skeptical. We've all seen questionable opportunities online, and this certainly caught my attention. But curiosity got the better of me, and I'm certainly glad it did. So today I want to walk you through exactly what happened, what was the interview like, are there other opportunities like this that may exist doing projects for LinkedIn for experienced HRIS professionals, and probably the most important, did I actually get paid? So let's talk first about the job posting. So the posting title, and I will put some images either in the blog post or in the YouTube version of the podcast so you can see some of that. The posting title was Recruiting Paid Consultant, Core HRIS Transactions, Integrations, and Data Audits. Okay, a little confusing. Recruiting, is this for recruiting people? But I saw the core HRIS transactions, integrations, that stuff that I could talk about. So as I read through the description, it became clear that they weren't really hiring somebody for a traditional consulting engagement. Instead, they wanted experienced HRIS professionals to participate in a recorded AI-led interview, really to have us explain just how we perform real HRIS work. They were looking for employee lifecycle transactions, effective data changes, integrations, payroll, data audits, mass corrections, security controls, all those kind of typical HRIS things, but they were not real specific. So the only thing I could really derive from this is that they just were looking for how experienced HRIS professionals actually think through real-world work. So because it was actually posted by LinkedIn, based on what I was seeing, I said, what the heck, I'm curious. Let's give it a shot. So, on LinkedIn, you can just press apply. And I thought it was going to be a long application process, but really I think it was one or two clicks. I don't remember updating a separate resume, but it looks like looking back at my application history, I see a resume attached. So I'm assuming that they must have evaluated me based upon my LinkedIn profile and then whatever default resume I have loaded to that profile. It accepted the application. Honestly, at that point, I figured maybe I'd never hear another thing. But after 2 business days, after applying, I received an email. I think the date was around July 9th. I think I'd applied around July 7th. And the email came from a service AI trainer at LinkedIn.com. So that made me feel better, right? It came from an actual LinkedIn.com domain. So I'm feeling maybe this isn't a complete scam. The good news, the email said that I had been selected to participate as an AI trainer. So far, so good. I guess I'm going to be helping train their AI. Honestly, still not sure exactly what the full purpose of this is or why LinkedIn's doing it. But hey, $110 an hour is $110. So I started the onboarding process. It was a combination of, there were a few LinkedIn.com emails, but they outsourced a lot of this to a company called Greenlight HRIS.ai. I'll cut to the chase. It seemed to be legitimate. That just must be who they contract all this onboarding work to. They manage the payments, etc. Now, I'll admit it did make me a little nervous that I was getting outsourced to another non-LinkedIn company, especially because at some point I knew I was going to have to provide my banking information so I could actually get paid. But I proceeded through the onboarding process. They brought me into a LinkedIn portal. Then they brought me into a Greenlight AI portal. The process was certainly not smooth. It looked like they almost set up 2 accounts for me for whatever reason. I got some links that didn't work, had to reach out to support. I finally got there. I would say all told, the onboarding process probably took about 30 minutes. So after the onboarding was over, it was a couple days. I think it was July 13th. I received another email from LinkedIn.com email address that was telling me that the AI interview was ready and that I could go in and complete it. I can't remember if I had a little bit of trouble if I tried to go in right away to do it. I ended up getting another email on July 16th warning me that I had to finish it that day or I would be disqualified. So I went in and started the process of doing the actual AI interview. So I clicked on the link. I did have some issues. Matter of fact, I was going to try and do a Loom session to record the session so I could maybe share with other people or have a recording of what I did. There were some problems. I got knocked out. I thought maybe it was related to me trying to start Loom. So I had to log back out, log back in. Now, this portal was a LinkedIn.com domain portal, which made me feel a little bit better. Let's talk about the actual interview. So they really didn't tell you what was going to be happening. There was no specifics on what they wanted to talk about, what kind of workflows. Really, they expected you to decide what process you wanted to explain. So a lot of ambiguity, but again, $110 is $110 an hour. So I proceeded. So once I got in to do the interview, and keep in mind, I'd never done an interview just with an AI interviewer. I have seen demos. I nearly did one about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but I ended up backing out of that opportunity. So I really didn't know what to expect. So I will have to say it is a little strange speaking to an AI personality. Now, they've made a lot of progress in voices, but they had not incorporated that into this AI interviewing process. The voice was very generic. Honestly, it felt a little strange. Again, you would have thought that the voice would have sounded a little more natural by now with all the technology. The experience reminded me of a trip I took to the Sphere in Las Vegas. In the lobby, they have these AI robots that are able to respond to you, and they do it. Either there's somebody behind the curtain, or they do a decent job of understanding what you're talking about and asking follow-up questions. This was pretty similar. So I will give it credit for how it adapted. It had no idea what I was going to talk about. I ended up talking about, just because it was top of mind, an application process, the candidate selection workflow, how that would relate to integrating into a core HRIS as a new hire file. Again, they didn't really care what you talked about. But once you started on a subject, what was impressive is that they were able to come up with relevant follow-up questions. So once I stopped focusing on the AI voice and kind of treated it as another interviewer, everything flowed a little more naturally. I got a feel for what they needed. Keep in mind, I wanted to do a good job because there's a little caveat in the contract. And again, they're paying you as a contractor, not as an employee of LinkedIn, that, essentially if the interview didn't go well or they didn't get value, they weren't going to pay you. But true to their word, the interview only lasted about 30 minutes. I can't remember if it stopped in a logical place, but as I recall, when it hit that 30-minute timer, the interview was over. So all in all, I would say pretty painless. Only took 30 minutes, maybe 30 minutes of time doing the onboarding and reading all the emails and instructions. Now, they had set expectations that they were paying for 30 minutes of your time, really just for the interview. So it said $110 an hour, but obviously cut that in half by 30 minutes, you're going to make $55. So now we get to the important part. Am I actually going to get paid for this? So I completed the interview again. I believe it was on July 16th. And once you finish, pretty generic exit screen, not a lot of instruction, and then nothing happened. Maybe I missed the email, but there was no email confirmation that I had completed the process or what the next thing to do or if I had a payment coming. So I waited. Then finally, on or around July 30th, I said, well, I'll just log into that Greenlight account where they process all the payments, and I'll see if there's any money waiting for me. To my surprise, there was a payment waiting. Even better, they paid the full $110. So maybe they got some backlash that it was taking people longer than the 30 minutes with all the setup. But I was pleasantly surprised. $110, processed on July 30th, hit the bank account the next day. And considering all the onboarding, troubleshooting, interviewing, again, probably took about an hour of my time, I felt like it was pretty fair. So there was another third party involved in the payment process. I think this Greenlight AI uses someone else to process payments, but at the end of the day, it showed up in my bank account. So another big question, would I do it again? I would, absolutely. I've got the account set up already. I don't know if this is something that LinkedIn's going to continue to do. I don't believe this particular posting still exists. I did search for it. If I can find it, I will put it in the show notes. I did see some others appear to be active for recruiting skills. And again, this is something to look out for. Not huge amounts of money, but for relatively low effort, $110 an hour. I was interested in what the AI interviewing process would look like. So I would call it a win-win. My guess is that if you have a HRIS background, you've got a resume, or your LinkedIn profile reflects that. There's nothing special about my profile. I would suspect most of us HRIS professionals out there would not have a hard time getting selected for little experiments and interviews like this. So my final thoughts on this is, again, it looked a little strange when I saw the LinkedIn posting and I almost ignored it. It seemed a little unusual, but curiosity won. It ended up being legitimate. One thing I think we may be able to do as a HRIS Careers community is share opportunities like this. So if you do see anything like this out there, let me know at troy.wallace@HRISCareers.com. If you're not on our email list, just go to HRISCareers.com /email and jump on it. If I find these things, I will try and get them out more real time so other people can take advantage of it. Obviously, if you see similar types of opportunities, do your homework, verify who it's coming from, read the details carefully. It just might be a legitimate opportunity to share your expertise and contribute to the future of AI and earn a little extra money in the process. So as always, I appreciate you being here and listening to the HRIS Careers podcast. If you've participated in an AI training project or you've had similar opportunities, I'd love to hear about it and hear your experience. You can just email troy.wallace@HRISCareers.com. And I'll talk to you on the next episode of the HRIS Careers podcast.
There we go.